Hi everybody. How you feeling? Good as hell? I love that song. So thank you everybody for coming out early this Friday morning to listen to my story. I was really caught off guard when I got the email from Evan and Andrew to inviting me to be their speaker for CreativeZen, which I think is such a fantastic idea. I've personally incorporated a lot of mindfulness into my life in the past few years, and it's helped me get through some tough times. So I love that it's incorporated in the art and what we do here in the 954. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in a little Hudson River town called Peekskill in upstate New York. It was a town where everybody knew each other. You walked to school close to West Point and surrounded by beautiful hills and trees and mountains. And it was a safe place. You rarely locked your door. However, it was a time where there wasn't a lot of art in the schools. So I was one of those kids who mainly was on that academic track. I went to a Catholic school. I got a great foundation. It wasn't until high school that I fell in love with art. And that's why I have this photograph here, because my first love was photography. I took a photography class, and it was before digital was popular, so I was actually in the darkroom developing my photographs, and I took my camera to all the football games, gave me an excuse to photograph the football players. And I also had a love for architecture, so I was photographing a lot of building structures in my town. There were some beautiful Victorian homes and old buildings, and then nature. I loved nature. So that began my love for the art, and I developed my skill as a photographer. But like a lot of other artists, I felt like I had to get a real job. So I went into this track where I became a journalist, actually, and I started working for CBS News Radio in New York City. I was working in the Black Rock building, and it was pretty exciting. I was going through all the shifts, meeting people, reporting, and then it got to me, the stories that we were reporting as newsmakers, because I had done my training with NPR. So my training was a little different than the type of news that I was delivering, working with that particular outlet. With NPR, I remember doing a training in Philadelphia where I was doing a story on the food of the city. So I had, and it was for radio, so I had recorded the sizzling sounds of the Philly cheesesteaks, and on the way to that famous cheesesteak restaurant, there were some horses. So I remember recording the clop, clop, clop of the horses, and it was creative storytelling. And I wasn't getting an opportunity to do that in the newsroom. So I started to feel something was missing, and I knew I needed to make a change, but I wasn't quite brave enough or prepared to make that change right away. So it was several years later. It was a move to South Florida, to the 954, to Hollywood, Florida, a city that I love, that I met some people here who were independent filmmakers right here in South Florida. I remember I was going out to poetry events and just kind of drawn to that creativity and the words and the enthusiasm and the energy of those events in South Florida. And I met this group of local filmmakers and started to chat with them, and they got me to reveal that I had been a secret writer. I used to wake up really early in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would just get out a paper and pen. I wasn't even doing it on the computer at that time. I liked the kind of organic feel of the pen in my hand and the paper glistening on my desk, and I would write stories. I didn't know where they were coming from or where they were going, but I would write stories. And one of these stories developed into a screenplay. And I shared it with this community of filmmakers that I met. And they were impressed or crazy. And they encouraged me to produce this film with them. So I got on set and, saw the whole process unfold before my eyes. And I felt like I was on a drug. It was the most enticing, exciting experience of my life. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be around these creative people. I want to bring stories to life in this format as a filmmaker. And I ended up going back to school and getting some formal training, and I evolved into a professor. I taught film, video production and documentary film at Nova Southeastern University for several years. And I made some movies. I made some award-winning movies. One of my first award-winning films was a documentary on New York Fashion Week. I partnered with a dear friend of mine, and we flew back up to New York to tell the story of African filmmakers who felt that they were being marginalized and they were not properly included in New York Fashion Week. And that documentary film ended up winning first place at the Miami Fashion Film Festival. And I continued, making my short films and telling stories. And then I found out about the 48-hour film project. And that's how most people know me in South Florida. I was on a set directing a short film that I wrote. It was a film for a nonprofit organization. It was telling the story of children or young people who had aged out of foster care. And every break, my crew would get together and they were lamenting about this exciting weekend that they had. And I was like, okay, guys, what did you guys do? They told me it was a 48-hour film project. They had 2 days to write, shoot, and edit a film. It was exhilarating, enticing, crazy weekend. And the next year when it came back to town, I threw my hat in. I got a team together. I participated. I made the worst film of my life. But I had a lot of fun and I met some really cool people. And I decided the next year when I found out they were looking for a city producer that was something that I could do to sort of start to segue my way out of my 9-to-5. I was working a regular job, making movies on the weekend. And so I threw my hat in there. The 48-hour hired me, and I produced that festival, and I still continue to produce it. It's become, an annual, much-loved event here in South Florida. It's brought people together. People have formed companies, made movies, won awards, fell in love, made babies, and all thanks to the 48-hour film project. So I'm really happy to have that project as a labor of love that I do every year for the community. For myself, because I was spending all this time producing the festival, I sort of had fallen away from making movies myself. So when my son graduated high school, I decided to go back to school myself and pursue my master's degree in cinema. So it was kind of a crazy way that happened. A friend had called me and asked me to write a letter of recommendation for him. And it was the day the applications were due. So I wrote his letter of recommendation. I was like, I always wanted to get a graduate degree. I wonder if I could do this application before midnight and get 2 people to write letters of recommendation. And thank God I had really good friends and colleagues. And I was able to get everything in before the deadline and got into that program. And there, as a slightly older, non-traditional graduate student, I guess you could say, I decided my path was going to be to support all the other students in my program. So I, having been in the 48-hour film project, knew a lot of really talented actors in the community. So I ended up producing a lot of films for my fellow graduate students and casting for them. And for my own work, I was gonna take another path, and I decided I wanted to really think outside of the box and play and dabble in an area of filmmaking that I hadn't dabbled in before. So I took a really creative path, and I did my first dance film, and then I collaborated with another local talent and did a poetry film, and everything I did in that program was sort of out of the box. For my thesis film, I was all set to do a romantic comedy, and then COVID hit, and everything shut down. The whole film program shut down, the world shut down. And I thought, what can I do with a crew of 1 to 2 people during this time where, you know, you can't really go out, you can't socialize. And I had started working on a project that I'd come across some archival footage of the protests to desegregate the beaches and swimming pools in South Florida. And also as part of my health journey, I'd started swimming with an organization called Diversity in Aquatics. And during one of my trips to my swim meet, the leader of that organization, he knew I was a filmmaker, and he invited me to the International Swimming Hall of Fame to videotape a ceremony where they were awarding a young man who had saved a little girl from drowning. And I went there to the International Swimming Hall of Fame here in Fort Lauderdale, and I met the then executive director, Bruce Wygo, and he took me on a tour of the art gallery that they had there. And he showed me an exhibition that he had curated on the history of Africans in swimming. And I have to say, it was really life-changing. It was amazing to me how art told the story, a story that I myself as an African-American woman was not aware of. And I wanted to put it together. And so the pandemic provided that time for me to put that story together. And Wade in the Water, Drowning and Racism is the documentary film that came out of that experience. And it won me an Emmy last year. So my journey has been a little unusual, and I like to tell everybody that I like to flow like water, because you never know where life is going to take you, right? There's always a lot of twists and turns on our journey, and you sort of have to be fluid to kind of go with the current, you know, where it's going to take you. And it's taken me to some really fantastic places. You know, back to my first love of photography, and that's why I have this photograph here. I got an opportunity to travel to Santiago de Cuba in 2019 with some friends for a wedding, and I captured this image of this woman. It was a hot day in this gallery in the downtown area, and I captured this, and I brought it here today because it reminds me how important storytelling is, and how one image, one frame can tell an amazing tale. And as a creative, storytelling is what is near and dear to my heart, and I continue to do it. I fell in love with the art of storytelling through photography, and then segued into film. But if you break film down, you know, what is it but still images, sound? So it's like all that training from my background as a radio journalist, as a photographer, has sort of come together in my storytelling now as a filmmaker. And the other really important thing that has helped to fuel my career and my journey is the community, the tribe. You know, having met my tribe of fellow creatives and people who sort of understand us, right? People here in this room, we're all a little different. We think outside of the box. We're creatives. You know, trying to sit in a cubicle is sort of a soul-sucking experience. And we need to be in creative spaces, and we need to be around people who understand the language that we speak in our journey. And I guess if I could give, you know, any advice to a budding creative, it would be to find your tribe. Find the people that understand you as an artist, who've been down that road, who respect and admire and can encourage you to leave fear behind, walk away from that job that's holding you down, that you think you need that paycheck. But when you put your mind to it, you manifest your reality. And that was another turning point for me in my life. I took a cinematography class with a Buddhist monk. And the book that he brought to class wasn't a cinematography book. It was a little blue book called As a Man Thinketh. And it really changed my life, because that book and that lesson from this amazing man really highlighted the fact that you, me, all of us have the power within us to create the life that we want. And, it all starts up here. It starts with your thoughts. So if you can think it, you can live it, you can manifest. And I've been manifesting some amazing things in the last year. The journey that I've been on with Wade in the Water, Drowning in Racism has been pretty spectacular. It's won me awards, it's won me an Emmy. It has brought me into spaces that I never thought I would go into. And it's brought me partnerships that continue to grow. And it's also allowed me to do something for my community. I use that film as a tool for outreach and engagement to encourage people of color to learn how to swim, because the statistics are staggering. Black people are drowning at 6 times the rate of Caucasian people. So that is the power of art, and that's the power, I think, of doing what you love. You change your world, you bring yourself joy, and you can also do something that changes your community and brings your community joy. And that's my story. Thank you.
Hold on to that.
Oh, okay.
We'd like to open it up to any questions for our speaker.
My name is Marjorie Alexander Gray. I was born right in this building, Providence Hospital, because at the time we wasn't able to be born at Broward General. But a few years later, after I left Villa High School with the UCT program, I mentored under Dr. Meisel as a 16-year-old right here. But I always dreamed after that of going to Broward General, not to be born, but to work. And years later, I did, from Miss Shirley, Dr. Shirley. She mentored all of us black nurses. We went to Broward General, and as we got to Broward General, I'm walking down the hall with my first job, and my teacher, his name was Herman Pittman. Herman Pittman died maybe 2 months ago. Yes, he died quite a while ago. Anyway, who was my first patient, who always said, if you want to be a nurse, don't go to no army. My other teacher, Mr. Basin, want me to go to army. You going to army? No, you are not going to army. You go to school. So I said, well, okay. Who was my first patient? Herman Pittman. And I walked in the room and he said, gee, where? I said, Coach Pittman, would you sit down? I'm your nurse. You mean to say you did what I told you to do? Yes. But anyway, I am blessed by the fact that I was just listening to a radio station, nighttime, a young man named White. So White was having Shirley Caesar singing. So you know what she said? Today is your blessing. Today is your blessing. You get in line. This happened a month ago. And since then, I've been in turmoil with my husband, who stopped working at the city for 25 years, around the house, running crazy. And I said to myself, I got to get out here and do something. And therefore, this expansion to me is so many stories. I worked at Broward General for 20 years. I was the first nurse who saw AIDS. scared to go in the room. He gonna get on the phone and call me, nurse, would you come to the floor? Can you get on the phone? I said, my patient doctor is in the room and he has a temperature of 105 and he got diarrhea and I got him in the bathroom. Well, you need to come to the phone. So I said, okay. No nurses will take care of my patient while this man is on the toilet. He was the first HIV patient from Oakland Park Boulevard. I knew his whole family who had AIDS. And all these people would go, they would give me, I'm a float nurse. They would give me all the patients with them symptoms. They didn't know. I said, doctor, my patient can have a seizure. How do you know he's going to have a seizure? Because I'm a nurse. So now we know AIDS patients is treated with seizure medicine because it happens. There's a lot of stories in this town that need to be told. And that is one of them. Because everybody, the question was, would I like for you to do my film?
All right, Mitch. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat thinking this needs to be a movie.
We have veterans in Broward County, World War II veterans, at Upper Graveyard with different kind of names. You know why they got different kind of names out there? I went in there with my camera and I got them 85 people, World War II veterans. My husband across the street, we come in, we cut the yard, we have a little flag. That's all we do in this town for our black people and the veterans. We got a flag, we got a whoop, whoop, and whistle and all of that. Anyway though, we have 85 veterans. So I'm looking at Tyler Perry on TV, say his next movie gonna be World War II veterans. And I'm saying to myself, we got 85 right here in Broward County. Nobody taking notice of them. They could not be bought, they could not be buried in their own graveyard. So they came over here.
Can we connect? There's so much synergy here that I'm hearing from you about events that are happening here at the Black Box Theater that we need to connect on, and your story definitely needs to be captured for the archives of this community. Thank you.
Hey Kathleen, I think I asked you this the first time I saw Wade in the Water. Are you ever looking at expanding and talking about more of the beaches on the East Coast and the experiences that were nationwide?
Yes, Hal, thank you for that question. I believe Wade in the Water should be a series. There are so many stories about historically black beaches all over the country, and I would like to tell them all. So that's what I'm trying to manifest right now.
I was in that situation.
We're gonna talk.
I'm look at me. I look white. Dr. Mizell, because I look so white. Isidore Jackson, because he looked white. I'm finished now. And he would take both of us kids to the water, and the police would come up. We'd be about 5 or 6 years old. And he about to look like white, okay? But the police came up and said, look at kids, let's get out the water. So we had put our feet in the water. But you'll never see that in no books.
I'm gonna interview you for the next film.
We have another question over here.
My question is, what advice do you have for, I guess you already have a career set, but coming to the arts? What advice would you have?
Repeat the question.
The question is, for instance, like, some individuals were working in the field for 30, 40 years, but like with your inspiration, what you talk about today, you might want to kind of like switch over to the arts. What advice would you have?
My advice would be to just do it. I think that, when you set your mind to it, you figure out a way to make it work. The money's there. And when I finally did leave my 9 to 5, it happened at a unity service. A friend had invited me to church for New Year's Eve, and they had a ritual, I guess. They wrote a letter to themselves, and you left it at the church. And then they mailed it to you a year later, and mine was like, Dear God, I want to totally support myself through my art. I do not want to work at this 9 to 5 anymore. And the next year when I got that letter in the mail, I was working for myself.
Amen.
And you mentioned a good point as you were sharing your story about finding your tribe. There are creatives here. There are people that host events, meetups, have groups that you can connect with here and after this event as well. And we find when you do find your tribe and you do connect and you do engage, they might be able to help you lead that path to pursuing your passion, your craft, your creative outlet, your profession, whatever it may be. And I gained my inspiration from this event, and hopefully that's why I like to continue to host it for free, to pay it back and pay it forward, because you never know who's going to be sitting in the audience looking for some inspiration or yearning for some inspiration if they know it or not. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you asking that question.
Evan, can I just give a plug for Broward County Cultural Division hosted a series of workshops, Artist as Entrepreneur. They also have grants for artists and workshops on, to give you advice on how to apply for these grants. So these are important things, and all of us as artists, that's part of our revenue. That's how we keep going, and also the arts institutions. So. Do your homework and take advantage of these resources in the community.
Amen. And AEI is a great program. It comes up, I believe, every year in June or in the summer.
I know it's in the summer.
Summer, it's 4 weekends a month throughout the summer. If you get an opportunity to be part of it, it's a great program. Andrew and I, through our Zero Empty Spaces initiative, are going to start a series of workshops for artists and creatives, more on the business side of art, branding, legal, writing your bio, headshots and stuff like that. So you can find out more. We'll post that through Choose 954 and Zero Empty Spaces. We're excited to launch that in the new year. And I had one final question before we leave a tour of this beautiful space. Could you tell the folks a little bit about your role here?
Absolutely. So this has sort of been another dream come true. I always thought about having something to do with a creative space where people could come together from all different art disciplines and make magic happen. And in the fall of 2020, the YMCA of South Florida came knocking on my door. And they had told me that they were building this brand new facility here in the heart of historic Black Sistrunk, the L.A. Lee YMCA Mizell Community Center. And they needed someone to spearhead the arts program. It was going to be one and only YMCA's with a theater. So I was intrigued, and I came to visit the site. The walls weren't up. I had to wear a hard hat and closed-toe shoes, and toured the facility. And I saw something really special in this space, and I knew that I had the resources and the connections and the experience to help them put together something that would be really beautiful for the community, to come in and to actualize theatrical performances, music, film series, spoken word, and it's lent itself to sort of a whole bunch of other opportunities for the community, meetups, dances, lectures, and I also program our art gallery. So Matt is going to talk a little more about the YMCA, but I'll just give you my spiel. We're on sacred ground. We are on the site of what was Provident Hospital, and this 65,000 square foot building was built with the collaboration of the community. They sat down at tables and workshops, and they told the YMCA what they wanted in this building, and I think the result is a fantastic space here that I hope everybody in the community takes advantage of. We have a healthy living center on the second floor, a magnificent basketball court. There's a whole wall of windows from floor to ceiling, so the kids play ball looking out at the treetops with natural light streaming through in air conditioning, and that's something pretty special in South Florida. We're 4 stories. We have a partnership with Broward College. They're located on the 4th floor. Their program is called Broward Up, and they offer GED programs, certificate programs that lead people